Good morning. Yeah, it looked like you were getting ready. You were trying to get their attention. So
I'll get there.
Okay. Where do you want me to sit?
No, you can sit right there.
Good morning. If people could be seated and if people could come up front, and there are handouts over here.
Do you want me to?
Actually, I want you to stay up here. I want to get people up here. Oh, okay. Who's going to watch? What time is it?
It is.
1, 2.
It's. I have just about it.
That's right.
If we could have people, seated up front, the handouts are here. No, I want you to come up here. If we could have the members of the executive board stand over here and the ALA staff over here and the committee members all come up front.
I'll pick you out of the audience.
Good morning. Well, good morning and welcome to the 2015 ALA Annual Conference. On behalf of the Council Orientation Committee, I welcome you to the orientation session for newly elected and re-elected councilors. I'm Joseph Egan, the chair of the Council Orientation Committee, and I am going to have the committee members and the ALA staff and the executive board members here introduce themselves to you.
Hi, I'm Rodney Lippard. I'm from North Carolina. I'm a former chapter counselor from North Carolina, and now I'm on the Council Orientation Committee.
Good morning. I'm Amy Lappin. I'm the New Hampshire chapter counselor.
Good morning. I'm Pat Hogan. I'm from Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. I'm a longtime ALA counselor. At one time, I was a chapter counselor, and people who know me know I love council, so I'm happy to be here in my role as a committee member.
Good morning. My name's Gina Persicini. I'm from Idaho. I'm the former Idaho chapter counselor. I'm now a member of executive board and liaison to the Council Orientation Committee.
Good morning. I'm Sari Feldman. I'm from Ohio, and I'm the president-elect of the American Library Association.
Good morning. My name is Courtney Young, and I am the president of the American Library Association, and I work at Penn State in the Pittsburgh area.
Hi, Keith Michael Fields, ALA Executive Director.
Joanne Kempf, the Director of the Office of ALA Governance.
Lois Ann Gregory Wood, the staff liaison to the Orientation Committee and the Council Secretariat.
Good morning, Laurel Swader, Director of the Office for Human Resource Development and Recruitment and the Allied Professional Association of ALA.
Carrie Price, Executive Board Secretariat and Staff Liaison to the Committee on Organization.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker will be our ALA president, Courtney Young.
Good morning again. Good morning. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the conference to welcome you to council. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for your service on ALA Council. You do incredibly important work, and your dedication is very much appreciated. I served on ALA Council as a roundtable counselor and then as a counselor at large. As president, I preside over the council meetings, Council 1, 2, and 3, and of course there'll be lots of orientation going on this morning about those meetings. The important thing that I want to let you know is that all of us are here to help you, to make the process go smoothly, and so that we can do our work and be productive. If you have any questions, concerns, certainly speak with anyone who's part of the liaison staff from ALA. Talk to me directly. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help. That's my role in chairing these meetings. So I just want to say in advance that I appreciate the hard work, dedication, and service, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Laurel Swader, ALA APA Director.
Thank you. Good morning again. I direct the Allied Professional Association, which is a separately incorporated 501c6 nonprofit organization. And in 2001, this organization was established as a companion organization to the ALA. The APA has no members, but its function is to support the membership of the ALA in areas dealing with certification of individuals beyond the master's degree and support staff areas, as well as those things related to advocacy for better salaries and pay equity. In 2001, certification was the main driving force for the organization to be created. But then in early 2002, Council voted to expand the charge to include things dealing with better salaries and pay equity. And part of that was driven by the presidential initiative of mistreatment at the time. Our organization is very small and compact. There are 2 of us who work there, and pretty much we are ALA employees who work mainly for ALA, but we have a percentage of our time that is dedicated to APA. One of the things you will know early on, as counselors of the ALA, you wear a dual hat. You're also counselors for the APA. But for legal reasons, as a 501c6, the business has to be conducted separately. So what tends to happen is when you hear things related to APA, you will see that in your council chambers, you will be adjourned as the ALA council and reestablished as the APA council so you can legally conduct business. That's also the case with the board of directors. The ALA has an executive board, but the APA has a board of directors. That's how we distinguish. But again, they have a dual function. They're the same individuals, just like you as counselors. I think it was 2011, council voted to only have APA council meetings at midwinter unless there was an action item requiring that you have it at annual. So you won't see me probably too much more at this conference, but at midwinter, you will have an APA council and we'll be discussing business there. One thing you also need to know is that we have a separate discussion list for APA council business. And the reason for that is because of the legalities, things dealing with certification, salaries, unions, things dealing with employment issues really should be discussed on that particular council list. So you may see messages occasionally from myself or Lois Ann or others related to our business on that APA list. Now, the fun thing that I love to talk about are the programmatic activities related to APA. As I said, certification is one side, the other is pay equity, so all of our programs fall within those 2 categories. For certification, we have 2 programs. We have the one that started it all, which is the Certified Public Library Administrator Program, CPLA. How many of you know about CPLA? That makes my job a little easier. CPLA is for public librarians who have been in the field for at least 5 years in a supervisory capacity. Most of them are directors, managers, and others. And so it is above the master's degree training for things that you didn't get in library school, to be a director, to be a chief administrator in a public library. In addition to that, I believe it was about 7 years ago, we created the Library Support Staff Certification. That certification is for individuals in any capacity in support staff levels in academic, public, school, special. We have people from all different disciplines who are certified as support staff. It's the fastest growing of our 2 certification programs as well. We have a website with a lot more information than I can give you in my 5 to 10 minutes, okay? So if you want to go to the website, it is, I think you should have the fact sheet. There's one up here, and it has our website on here to learn in detail much more about our 2 certification programs, okay? The things dealing with better salaries and pay equity are on the back of this sheet. One of our biggest, proudest events is National Library Workers' Day. It is an advocacy campaign for people who work and support libraries. If you work in a library, you have staff who work in a library, this is your day. It is the Tuesday of National Library Week, and that's in April every year. Sometimes it coincides with Equal Pay Day, which deals with women's issues related to equity across the country. How many of you did or didn't know that women make approximately 77 cents on the dollar for a man's earnings? That's important to us because we are a pink-collar profession. So gentlemen, it affects you too, because all the salaries are low because of that. So we support that activity as well. Now, National Library Workers' Day has a huge social media presence. We are on Facebook, we are on Twitter. Please follow us at ALA APA on Twitter if you'd like to keep up with what's going on and all those activities. I've got 2 more. One is our newsletter. We have an e-newsletter that comes out the 2nd Tuesday of every month, and it is available free to all of you who are members of ALA. If you go to the APA website, it's called Library Work Life. So please take a look at that publication. If you have articles or activities that deal with worker concerns that are going on in your libraries, email us and we'll try to get those in the newsletter. And finally, and I'm rushing because I have another job to do in about 10 minutes. Finally, the salary survey, which is a huge part of what we do. We have our new salary survey. It's actually just went live about 3 days ago. It used to be in print. Now it is totally online. And it is available free to organizational members. But if you're an individual or your library who is not an organization member, there is a modest fee for access to that. You can get a subscription for a year for about $150. And it is the latest edition for the 2014 data, which came out a couple weeks ago, is actually for public and academic librarians with MLSs, okay? But when you get in the database, here's the cool thing. We have retro data from 2006 for all positions in academic and public libraries. So there's a lot there for that subscription. Any questions? Okay, if not, you will see me again, probably in about 6 months, and you'll hear from me sooner. Thank you, and have a great conference.
Laurel, thank you very much. Our next speaker is President-elect Sari Feldman to give us her greetings and remarks. Thank you, Sari.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, everyone. I'm really looking forward to having the opportunity to work with you in the coming year. So I have the great pleasure to talk a little bit about advocacy as one of ALA's 3 new strategic directions, and it will be an intense focus for the association over the next 3 to 5 years. As part of the strategic planning process over the past several months, ALA has developed a new advocacy plan. And the plan calls for ALA to, and I'm quoting, develop a sustained national advocacy campaign to increase public awareness of the value, impact, and services provided by librarians and libraries of all types. I have the pleasure of launching the campaign, the public awareness campaign for advocacy on Tuesday, June 30th at my inaugural brunch. And the campaign is called Libraries Transform. The ultimate goal of the campaign is to increase funding support for libraries and to advance information policy issues in alignment with the ALA advocacy goals. The broad objectives will include increased awareness of and support for the transforming library, shifting perceptions of the library from obsolete or nice to have to essential, and engaging and energizing library professionals, like all of you in this room, and building external advocates to influence local, state, and national decision makers. We want the campaign to communicate one main idea, that libraries today are less about what we have for people and more about what we do for and with people. The campaign will launch with a series of high-impact posters, video, and a dedicated website. And I'll be showing the images at the inaugural brunch, and the website will launch immediately after, and everyone will have access to it. The multi-year communications initiative will engage ALA members and key partners in brainstorming national, state, and local implementation strategies while capitalizing on some regular touch points. So it'll be embedded in things like National Library Week, the Policy Revolution, Library Card Sign-Up, and other ALA events that we anticipate during the course of the year. There'll be a strong social media component of the campaign. And when I launch Libraries Transform on Tuesday, it will begin with a very internal communication effort and education effort. Focus on getting ALA members and key partners energized and excited and prepared with the key messaging. And then in October, we're going to launch a full-scale public campaign. We recognize, though, that the success of this campaign is really going to depend on the involvement of all of you and all of our members to build momentum and enthusiasm. ALA doesn't have a budget to take out ads at something like the Super Bowl to conduct an extensive digital media campaign. But we have 55,000 members. Many of you use media and social media in your daily lives, so we will encourage you to get involved and to get active. Also, our vendor partners are very enthusiastic and will be using some of their communication assets to help in the Libraries Transform campaign. We have very creative people in this association, and our relationships in our communities are also filled with creative people. So we want all of the best thinking and activity focused on Libraries Transform for the next 3 to 5 years. So I want to ask you to think about a few things today and then get in touch with me and let me know your ideas or anyone else from the ALA leadership. How can we get the message out to the public at the national level? Think about some non-traditional touch points. You know, feel free to share any idea that would have some broad interest and implications. How could local libraries get the message out to people in their communities? And when we're talking about libraries and communities, we're talking about all types. So certainly public libraries are easy to explain and explain our community, but our school libraries and our school communities, our universities and colleges, our state libraries, we all have communities that we connect with. And then our champions have products, services, and an extensive reach. What should we be asking them to do to help us communicate the message of Libraries Transform? So again, I look forward to hearing from you. I wish you great good luck and success. And I also look forward to working with you in the next coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Sari. Our next speaker is our ALA Executive Director, Keith Michael Fields. He'll talk a little bit about the strategic plan. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Joseph, and good morning, everyone. I probably need to recognize there's one person here at the council orientations who I probably need to call out, and that is our president-elect, Julie Tadero. Julie. Great. Great. I'm going to first, with your permission, just find a little bit out about you. How many of you are chapter counselors? Okay. How many of you are division counselors? Roundtable counselors? All right. And counselors at large? How many are you are at this orientation for the first time ever? How many of you are groupies who wouldn't miss one for the world? Okay, all right, there you go. All right. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about myself, because this will be probably one of the few opportunities you'll have to learn a little bit about me. And Courtney's like, oh no. No, I will zip through this. I have been a librarian since I was working as a librarian, professional librarian, since I was 21 years old. So this will explain, how I've been able to do so much and still look so fabulously young. I served as a school librarian for my first 5 years, working next to a steel plant in Lackawanna, New York, in a severely disadvantaged community. And a lot of what I've carried through me, I learned there when I learned that if you could get a good book into the school, you could get half the kids in the school to read it, and you could see the difference that made in their lives. I then served as a public librarian in Indiana, went back to University of Denver for a year. Thought I was going to settle in the West, ended up interviewing and being hired by E.J. Josie to work on a statewide project for the New York State Library, which involved community-based planning and community engagement. I got interested at that point in planning and technology, and went on to become a consultant at the New Jersey State Library, worked on legislation there to develop multi-type library cooperatives, became a system director, a founding director of one of the multi-type systems in Jersey. And then after a number of unsuccessful tries, including North Dakota, I became the director of the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners, which is the state agency serving the Commonwealth, and served there for 10 years working on developing a statewide strategic plan, securing about $250 million in new funding for libraries. We doubled state funding for libraries. We went from a public library base to a multi-type based system, and also got about $250 million in construction funds, which we leveraged against $500 million in local funds to essentially rebuild 3/4 of all public libraries in Massachusetts. So just people occasionally say, oh, are you a librarian? And the answer is, although people have said I haven't been a librarian for many years, I think serving the profession has been something that I've made a career of. And I'm very interested, as you can tell, in advocacy. I've been here for 13 years now, and I suppose that's lucky. I've also been a member of ALA since 1976. That's a long, long time. My perspective on council is probably similar to your perspective as a member, and that is, council is something that people talk about either with awe or with fear. And certainly at certain points over the next 3 days, you will feel both of those emotions. I think I can guarantee that. And while council, people are like, oh God, I could never do that. My perspective has always been that no matter what gets onto the floor, no matter who speaks, when people raise their hands, if you look at the work that has come out of this group, it is something that we can be vastly proud of. So that has been my perspective coming in on this. People say, well, Congress never does anything. we all know that part of good work is making sure that you do the right things. This is not a quantity operation, this is a quality operation. So I really, the deliberation and the perspectives that you bring to decision making, I think are reflected in a body of policy and positions on the part of the association that I think we can all be very, very proud of. One of the roles you also serve as a counselor, and it's kind of like an untold story, is that people tend to regard you as an ombudsman. So you will find people will bump into you and start complaining about the badge holders. I know that was my first conversation as executive director. Somebody was complaining that they didn't like the badge holder. And let me just say that we have 55,000 members. We have hundreds of thousands of transactions a year, registrations, membership, you name it. People calling, people emailing us, people Twittering us. Once in a while, something actually goes wrong. And this will come as a shock to you, I know. But people will then come to you with problems or things that are not right. Please do not sit on it. You do not need to introduce a resolution. Pick up the phone, hop onto email, and call us. You've got a lot of great people, Courtney Sari, myself, Mary Geekus, Lois Ann, Joanne Kempf, Mario. There's a lot of people that are interested in, if there's a problem, let's get on it right away, and we will then do two things. First of all, we will make it right for the person insofar as we can, and I think we have a very good track record on that. Second of all, we will look and try and find out what was the underlying cause that caused this to occur, and is that something that we need to change? So continuous improvement is not necessarily the fad that it was 10 years ago, but it's important that every time we run into something that's not working for a member, that we fix it and then make sure that we look at what it was that made things go wrong and get it fixed. So please, you will find yourself serving in that role. And it's something that people maybe don't know how to deal with, but people do see you as a representative of the association, and you do have the ability to help make things right for our members. My job ultimately is to support your work. So I do hope that you'll feel free. Every time I try and give somebody a card, they're like, I don't need a card, you're easy to get a hold of. We are very easy to get a hold of. Feel free, as I said, to just reach out. If you have a question, if something doesn't seem right, something's not adding up, you don't have to don't be shy, and you can reach out sort of individually and get things clarified, or if there's some background information you need. Sometimes people will consult with us because they're trying to get something achieved. We do provide strategic advice on how to make things happen within the association, and again, we're there to do that, and it's not our job. Sometimes it's something that you're interested in doing. We'll figure out and give you advice on how you can actually achieve it. So please feel free to reach out to any of us. As Courtney and Sari have indicated, one of the things that you'll be asked to do on Sunday is to approve ALA's new strategic directions document, which is ALA's new strategic plan. I'm sure that you've all had a chance to take a look at it. You will see some things in that plan that are very familiar to you, and that is to say things like the key action areas, our continued commitment to intellectual freedom, to equity of access, to diversity, to the organizational excellence. And these things are long-standing values of the association and goals of the association. What's different about this plan, and our current strategic plan actually ends this year. So we have spent about 2 years working with the membership and talking about it, and people have said, we want some strong areas of focus for the next 3 to 5 years, and those are advocacy, information policy, and professional leadership development. So what we're trying to do is balance the fact that we need to maintain very strong commitments in a lot of areas, because we serve a lot of aspects of the profession and of a wide range of what libraries across this country and internationally are doing. At the same time, as Sari's pointed out, things like advocacy, we need to step it up and take it to the next level. Information policy, there are tremendous opportunities and threats that lie ahead for us that we really need to go in strong on. And professional leadership development continues to be something that the membership is very interested in. How do we make it more readily available? How do we make sure that people have access to the skills, the training they need to be able to advance, to be able to improve services, and to have more of an impact in our jobs? So we did, the plan was originally distributed by Courtney May 25th. We got some comments, a small number, and we have made just two what I think are small but significant changes in the text. So document 37 does reflect what will be going forward, and we will be obviously looking for your enthusiastic support for what I think is a very strong vision for the association going forward. I would be remiss if I did not conclude by really thanking the people that I get to work with, and that includes Courtney, Sari, Mario, Ellie. They're conveniently sitting together. Joanne Kempf, Carrie Price, Lois Ann Gregory Wood, Danielle. They're really a great crew, and everybody is here to help you to make sure that you can do your job the way that you need to be able to do it. I want to thank you very much for agreeing to serve. You could be out at the bars, you could be out at the museums taking, tours of Alcatraz, but instead you're going to be here at Council, and I really appreciate your commitment to the association and all that we do. I really look forward to working with you in the coming year. So thank you very much.
Keith, thank you very much for your leadership and for your remarks to the group here. Our next speaker will be our ALA treasurer, Mario Gonzalez. And just as an aside, I do want to mention, yes, you really want to contact the ALA staff or the ALA leadership, volunteer leaders, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joseph. We're going to talk about money. Good morning, fellow councilors. I'll give you a brief overview of the budget process as it relates to ALA and actually as it relates to you. At this conference, you're going to be approving the 2016 budget, which begins on September 1st of this year. And you'll also be approving the budgetary ceilings, which is how much money can the organization spend based on the money that we have, what we anticipate bringing in, and what we anticipate spending. The unique thing about ALA is that not only are we looking how we spend our money, but we have to see how do we get our money. We constantly have to be finding revenue sources to bring into the association so that we can have the money to do all the wonderful work that we'll do. So congratulations for being on council. I see some familiar faces. And some of you may have heard some of this already, but I'll be happy to answer questions. There are several stakeholders that are involved in the budget process, and I hope you all have copies of the presentation that I'm going to be speaking from. There are copies of this up at the table here. The executive board takes a look at the budget. BARC takes a look at the budget. I'll talk about BARC in a few minutes. There's also the staff that puts the budget together for all of the workings of ALA. Council also has the final approval after the executive board. And the Finance and Audit Committee, which is the committee that I chair, and that is the budget committee of the executive board. I'm not going to go into details about all of the people that are involved, but as you can see, it's all of you and all of the people that I mentioned. BARC, the Budget Analysis and Review Committee, is a very important committee for you. This is your committee, our committee, that represents us in the budget process. Usually you will hear on the council floor that some resolutions or some motions or issues that are being discussed that are going to be referred to BARC. The reason for that is that if anything has any financial implication to the organization, we need to consider how that's going to come to make it happen. It's not as how do we make it stop, but how do we make it happen? So it's a way of identifying revenues and resources so that actions that all of us take on the council floor can succeed. And you can see here that there are members that are selected by the president. I'm an ex officio voting member, and there are also members from council that are represented on BARC. Some examples of things that have come to BARC from the council floor, and the most recent one was the cost of programming at Midwinter Conference. We had that discussion at Midwinter. But we've also talked about the due structure. We've talked about resolution on gathering statistics. So it immediately comes to mind that even gathering statistics, it takes staff time, efforts, resources to make that happen. As you can see, there's also a budget timeline. I'm not going to go through that in details, but there are times that we're actually looking at 3 budgets. The budget that just closed, which happens at the end of August, and we usually look at that in the fall and the midwinter, and we bring that to you so that you know how we did when we closed the budget. We look at the current budget we're in. We're currently in the 2015 budget. We closed the 2014 in November. It takes 13 to 14 months to close a budget. And then we look at the incoming budget. Some of the reasons for that is, for example, when I talked to you at the information session this afternoon, we only have numbers up until April at this point, and we have some preliminary numbers for May. But those do not include all of the revenues we're getting from this conference. That's not going to hit the budget until June. So that's where we have to look in terms of sometimes we may be in a deficit and sometimes not, but it's not an alarm. It just means that at that point in time, that window in the budget, not everything has hit for payment or everything has hit for income. There is a timeline of the budget process and how that works. And when we look at the incoming budget, in this case, at 2016, the finance staff and BARC and the PBA and executive board take a look at what are some of the external forces that are going to have a possible implication on our revenues and expenses. So we look at how we actually did the year before in terms of actuals. We look at what our healthcare and benefits cost this incoming year. For 2016, you will hear in my presentation that we are proposing a 2% raise for ALA staff. So that would have an implication on the budget. What is the environment in the government and what is the environment in the financial situations and conditions, not only in the United States, but globally? We have our revenue-producing units, which are publishing, conference, and dues. Those are the largest 3 pieces, and we need to look at that when we look at the 2016 budget. In addition, I'll talk a little bit about the endowment. The endowment is really a misnomer. It's a long-term fund which is managed by trustees of the association, and they are ones responsible on the allocation and investment of the fund, which at this point sits at about 41 million and change. And this is a fund that will create a sustainability for the association into the future. We use monies from the income that we get from interest on the corpus of 41 million for scholarships. This year we're using one in the coming year for 2016 for technology upgrades. So there are monies coming out of that for us to help us do what we need to do for the organization. We're also going to look at that money to be used for the strategic directions, as Keith mentioned earlier. Once the budget is approved, which happens at this conference, the budget is closed. There are no changes to the budget, and then we take a look at how we spend or overspend in each of the categories related to this. And these are multiple pages. So we go into every minute detail of the monies of the organization. And our goal is to be completely transparent with you and the membership, the staff, so that everybody knows how the money is going and that it's being spent what it's intended to be spent for. Final adjustments are made at this conference, and then once the budget is completed, as I said before, it's final. New projects or initiatives that are introduced outside the budget process will have to wait until the next budget cycle. So it's important that if you have good ideas that are coming up now, please hold on to them, because they will be looking at that, and right after the budget closes in August, we're already going to begin looking at the 2017 budget. I thank you for listening and for your time. Money is very important. So I'd like for you to get a general overview. I'm always available for questions at all on any aspect of this. And Joseph, turn it back to you.
Mario, thank you very much. Our next speakers are Paul Grolier and Alicia Babcock, and they're going to talk to you about council housing, which is a very important thing for councilors, and about a little bit about conference services. So Paul and Alicia are here from conference services. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Grolier, Director of Conference Services for ALA, and the Conference Services Department is in charge of kind of the overall operations and logistics of the annual conference and midwinter meeting. So we handle all the nitty-gritty details of those events. We start really working on both of them about 15 years out. When we pick a city, we start negotiating contracts with convention centers and hotels. And then about 3 years out, it starts getting real busy with all the other details that we go through. We handle audiovisual, all the decorating, all the exhibitor operations, things like that. And then really information starts going out to the public about a year out from the event. So there are a lot of details we handle, and one of the most important for you guys is registration and housing. So I will turn it over to Alicia to give you a little info.
Hi. I just wanted to say there are council blocks at every single hotel for midwinter and annual. So if you select councilor during the registration process, it'll push you into those blocks. I can't hold on to those rooms forever, so we need to do it early, but I try to hold on to them as long as possible before they go out into the general attendee. Lois Ann will send information out about that, right? Yes? Any questions? No?
No questions. Come on, give us some questions.
Nope.
Oh, we do have a question.
Oh, yeah. The day we open, no, it would probably be, I would have to release the blocks usually 2 months before a conference, a month and a half. Like I said, I try to hold on to it as long as possible. Cities are different. We were pretty much sold out in San Francisco, so I had to, they went quick. So to guarantee, it has to be early.
What's the difference between council block rooms and the rest?
They're just held for counselors. It's the same run of house, same room type. It's just the general attendees don't have access to those rooms.
Yeah, when you go into the registration system and say you're a counselor, it'll give you access to those blocks.
It's the very first demographic question. Are you part of this? Say counselor.
Perhaps it would help to say that people feel that they get a better chance at hotels.
The question was, what's the difference between a council block and a regular block? And as a counselor, you get the advantage of having access to blocks at every hotel. There's some hotels that'll sell out the first week, the second week, the third week, so we give you guys a little extra time to have access to a special block set up for counselors. But as Alicia said, at some point we need to open those up to the rest, because we overblock. There's 180 counselors, but we might block 400 rooms to be able to get rooms at all the hotels. So we know you're not going to use 400 rooms, so at a certain point we want to take 200 of those back and throw them out to the general public. But we want to give you the advantage of that time. So usually blocks will open October 1st for midwinter and sometime in January for annual. So you'll have 3 or 4 months almost to decide where you want to stay, but then at a certain point we will release those. But we will make sure you know those deadlines and send you reminders.
Often when I book a hotel, I like to book it where the council forum is going to be held. Is there a way to know that in advance? When I book a hotel, I want to know where the council forum is going to be held at night. Is there a way to know that?
Is that, you're talking about this?
The evening event? Lois Ann will help us all.
Lois Ann can talk about that issue, okay? And actually, if you want to talk, if you want to ask a question, we would appreciate it if you went to the microphone, or if you're right up front here, we'll give you the microphone. Thank you.
Hi. The forum, I don't know if you guys picked up one of the handouts, but one of the handouts which says it's a letter dated June 2015. It has a schedule for 2016, and the council forums meetings are in that schedule.
Do we have any other questions? Paul, Alicia, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Carrie Price from the ALA Governance Office. Carrie will talk to us about the appointments process.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Carrie Price. I'm the Executive Board Secretariat, and I'm also the staff liaison to the Committee on Committees, the Committee on Appointments, and also the Committee on Organization. So I'm just going to sort of go through the appointments process today. First, I'll describe the difference between the Committee on Committees and the Committee on Appointments and what they do during the appointments process, and then I'll go through a timeline of the entire process. So I basically assist the President-elect of ALA and the Committee on Committees and the Committee on Appointments as they go through this whole process. So that's my role in this appointments thing. So first of all, the Committee on Committees is a 4-member council committee that's elected at annual conference, and they serve a 1-year term, and the ALA president-elect is the chair of that committee. And the Committee on Committees is responsible for appointing members and interns to the 17 council committees. The president, and as I said, the president-elect is the chair of that committee. The president-elect is responsible for designating the chairs of the council committees. So that's how the 17 council committees are put together. And that the Committee on Committees is required to report to council prior to or at the annual conference. And usually this is done via a written report listing all of the members, chairs, and interns of all of the different council committees. And this document is completed by the governance office, and you'll see this at this coming council. I'm not sure which one, but yeah, it'll be at the upcoming council meeting. So that's the Committee on Committees. So they're responsible for the council committees, and then the Committee on Appointments is responsible for assisting the president-elect of ALA in appointing members, interns, and chairs to the 20 ALA committees and the 2 joint committees. And the Committee on Appointments is made up of all of the division president-elects, and the chair of the Committee on Appointments is, again, the ALA president-elect. So, as I said, they're charged with suggesting potential nominees to the committees, to the president-elect, and these slates are approved by the executive board at the midwinter meeting. And then they're also submitted to council at annual conference, so you'll see those as well. So in total, there are about 40 committees. So that's basically how the members, chairs, and interns are appointed. And now we'll just kind of briefly go through the timeline. And the timeline starts in August, so basically, shortly after annual conference, and then it goes through the next annual conference. So in August, there's a call for committee nominees and volunteers, and that goes out in AL Direct. There's a press release that goes out. There's also usually a button on the front page of the ALA website. The announcement is sent out by various divisions and roundtables, et cetera. So that goes out in August. And then the volunteer form is open from August to early November. So people log on with their ALA web login, and they fill out the volunteer form and select the committees that they're interested in serving on. And then in October, I help train the Committee on Committees and the Committee on Appointments to use our database system, because everything is now done online. So the volunteer form is done online, and all the appointments are done online. It used to be done manually via letters and that sort of thing, but we don't do that anymore. Everything's hooked up to our database. So makes it a kind of a smooth process. So in October, they're trained to use the database, and they can basically go into the database system and start get a head start on the process and look at the volunteers and start thinking about who they would like to recommend for appointment to the various committees. And then in November, after the form closes, the Committee on Committees and the Committee on Appointments send their recommendations to the ALA president-elect, who then puts together his or her slates, and then the council committees are presented to the board for information purposes. And as I said earlier, the ALA committees are presented to the board for approval. And that happens at midwinter. So that's January. Then in February, when we get back from the midwinter conference, I start sending out the invites via email. And that's kind of a long process where often there are declines, and so we have alternates that we invite. So it's a long, ongoing process, but it's finally done, hopefully, before the annual conference, which is where we're at now. So, as I said, the slates have been put together, and they'll be presented to council at this meeting. And then the whole process starts all over again. So that's basically the appointments process. Does anyone have any questions? Yes. Do you want me to just, oh, yeah.
Could you go to a microphone?
Okay.
Yes, sorry. If you volunteer for a committee and you're not selected, does your name remain on the list for consideration for the following year?
No, you should fill out the volunteer form every year.
Okay, and I have another question. Yeah. What is the criteria that the members use to determine who will be added or recommended for the committee?
Well, that, it depends on what, they're looking for. Usually, experience, geography, lots of different factors go into that. It's not a set criteria written in stone, but, the volunteer form is pretty, I don't know if you filled it out, but it's pretty detailed, so you put all your experience there, and, but that's a big factor, yeah. Anyone else have any questions? No? Okay, well, thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Carrie. Just two reminders. The headquarters hotel at the 2016 midwinter meeting will be the Westin Waterfront in Boston. That will be the headquarters hotel. And we do have continental breakfast in the back of the room, and you're welcome to get up and get that. And actually, if you do want to talk, because we're videotaping the session, we would appreciate it if you went up to a microphone. We have microphones here and here, and that will give you a little practice for actually going up to a microphone in the council room, because we all know how reluctant people can be to get up to that microphone the first time. Next on the agenda is Rodney Lippert. He's going to talk about the council forums. Oh, do you have a question? Please go to the mic. Yeah.
You say you only have one conference hotel? Isn't it in the past we had 2 conference hotels? Could you repeat that?
Lois Ann, we only have one conference hotel headquarters. Yeah, so again, for the 2016 ALA Midwinter, there's only one conference headquarters hotel. We'll double check that. We'll double check that for you. That information will be coming out anyway. Rodney, thank you.
Good morning. Again, thank you for being here and serving. My name is Rodney Lippard, and I am the former chapter counselor from North Carolina. And during my time on council, it was my pleasure to serve as one of the co-conveners for Council Forum. You heard a little bit about that earlier today. I imagine the reason you want to book your room there is because these are usually late night things. So it's good to be able to go right there to your room afterwards. But I want to talk to you about Council Forum. First of all, it is an informal gathering. So at the Council Forum, no decisions are made, no votes are taken. But it is a time to meet with your other councilors to discuss the issues that are coming before council. So it is a time when people who are writing resolutions will show up and you can ask questions of them and get information back that will help you make informed decisions when you do come to council to cast your vote. It is not required, but it is highly suggested. It was at Council Forum, when I first came on to council, how I really learned about the issues that were coming before council. So it gave me a chance to really get involved and find out what we were actually going to be voting on. Because sometimes the resolutions, you might not think of things that other people do. And so it's a chance to meet and talk about that. Again, no decisions are made at Council Forum. So, you may come to a consensus that night amongst your peers, but that doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen the next day when you actually vote on the resolutions. It usually meets on Sunday and Monday nights at 8:30. So that's why I said these are late night sessions. They go from usually 8:30 to 10 in one of the main hotels. If you will look in your schedule in the letter that was sent to you, you will find where council is meeting, Council Forum is meeting this time. At the end of Council 1 and Council 2, one of the co-conveners will make an announcement to remind you about where Council Forum is that night. They will also be asking for topics to address at Council Forum. So the way that the forum works is that you have co-conveners who convene the forum. They take the topics that have been given to them and they look and see how much time can be allocated to those topics. Then they will make sure that that meeting runs smoothly and that each person who wants to talk has an opportunity to talk. Let's see. And that's pretty much it for the council forums. Any questions on that at this time? Okay. Let me see a show of hands again of the chapter counselors. Oh, great. Lots of good new chapter counselors here. There is also, you'll notice, a chapter counselor forum, and this usually happens on Monday afternoons. The chapter counselor forum is different from the council forum. As a usual rule, resolutions and that type of thing are not discussed at the chapter counselor forum. It's really a time for the chapter counselors to talk about what's happening in their states and in their chapters. So some of the things that they may talk about is the administration of the chapter or the state conference, and be asking for suggestions maybe on registration software to use at your state conference. So that's the type of thing that happens at the Chapter Councilor Forum. So again, it's a good meeting for those of you who are chapter councilors to attend that. Every now and then, it's very rare, but there may be a resolution that's coming up that would affect the chapters in some way. And at that time, they may discuss that at the forum. But again, that's really very rare that that will happen. So that's it with council forums and chapter councilor forums. Anybody have any questions? Great. Thanks again.
Thank you, Rodney. Next on our agenda is Gina Persicini and Pat Hogan. They're going to give you the basic information that you'll need. This information was sent to you in April 2015 from Lois Ann Gregory Wood, and that was the welcome letter that all the newly elected councilors received. But Pat and Gina are going to review that for you, and then we can take questions too. Thank you.
Good morning again. My name's Gina Persicini. I'm a former chapter councilor from Idaho, and I think it's 7 or 8 years now I've been on council. I forgot. So the letter. You've received a letter from Lois Ann. I encourage you to read the whole thing. It has a tremendous amount of information. We're going to cover a few highlights that haven't been covered elsewhere today. So here's my big piece for you. Council is the policy-making body of the American Library Association. That means if you or a member, you want ALA to do something, you want ALA to make a change in their policy, you want ALA to have a procedure, you want the staff to perform some function, you want ALA to make a statement supporting a particular view or opinion, it goes through this body for the most part. That's simplifying it, but it goes through this body, usually in the form of a resolution. So that's what, I used to get that question back at home. What is the deal with all these resolutions? Well, if you want ALA to say, we prefer that everybody has chocolate ice cream, that the staff need to know that that's the way we feel. And in order to do that, we pass a resolution and we discuss the merits of it. We discuss whether strawberry is in fact better or not. And we make a decision, we come to an agreement, and we have a statement from which the ALA staff can speak. So that's part of what happens with the resolutions process, but that's where ALA Council is the policy-making body of the association. This policy-making body is made up of, quick math, I think 186 people. 53 of those are chapter councilors, 10 are representatives from roundtables, 12 are executive board members, 11 are representatives from ALA divisions, and there are 100 at-large members. When you come to council, you have been elected by a particular body to represent them, but understand, and I suspect that our parliamentarian will also repeat this, once you are on the council floor, you vote your conscience. You will hear people say things like, you know, my division believes chocolate is in fact better in our ice cream world. And we support this resolution for these reasons. You will hear somebody saying that, you know, my division or my unit has asked me to express this, but when it comes to making a vote, you are an individual representing all of the American Library Association, not just your little corner. So you might hear somebody say, well, my board told me to vote this way. In fact, you are an individual and you have a conscience because things are said on council floor that may have happened between the time you had the discussion with your representative unit and the time the vote is taken. That can change things. So it's good to understand that you still need to represent the entire association. I think Ellie probably says that better when he gets there. Why resolutions? Okay, policies and procedures and bylaws. It's good to familiarize yourself with the policies and procedures. There was a day when we would have this handbook and carry it to the council, and people would read from it at the microphone. And it's online now. You will have Wi-Fi access in the room. There's actually a link right to where the policies and procedures and bylaws are in that letter from Lois Ann. So it's really good to familiarize yourself with where that is. If you're using electronics and a connection during the meeting, I keep it bookmarked, so it's just a quick access when I need to get to it. Seating. Jump right from policies and procedures to where do you sit? Because this is the biggest thing. You come in, where do I sit? Contrary to what you might be told, there is no assigned seating. I may sit in the same place from time to time because I'm resistant to some change. But in fact, there's no saved seats. So go gentle there. But as elected and seated councilors, you will sit where you're seated now, at the tables with chairs. That is your place. Up in front, there'll be the president, and the executive director, the parliamentarian. Joanne Kemp will be up there. There'll be a group of people, they're raised high so we can actually see them and so they can see you. There is open seating at the back of the room because this is an open meeting. We absolutely welcome guests and those interested in learning about the process to come and enjoy the process. But your seats will be at the tables because if there is a need to take a standing vote where they just need to count bodies, that you need to be at those seats where the tables are so they can see you. I'll let Pat go.
I'm Pat Hogan. Some of you may know me. I've been a counselor at large for some time, but I've also been a chapter counselor, so I can appreciate what people from chapters face. To recap, there are a lot of duties on council. We're not just sitting at the table listening. You have to annually elect committee on committees. You work with the president. The committee on committees works with the president-elect for appointments. They review the actions of the executive board, and also we receive lots of reports from BARC, the views of the resolutions committee. We can originate and act on proposed amendments. We can establish dues. We can receive, and we do receive, the report of the nominating committee. So it's not just a cerebral type of exercise, but it's actually very important work for the association. We can act on petitions from national organizations, and we can review the implementation report. One of the things that was said before, I think Keith Michael feels about, we're ombudsmen, but you're also educators, because when you're here, you're learning the different positions, and from these reports and from the discussions and the words at the microphones, you're learning. And I think that's important to emphasize because while it's true that you come here, and if you're not at large, you're a chapter counselor, maybe roundtable or divisional counselor, you may feel that you have a position, a focus. You also need to absorb and learn so that you can go back and educate both a board or another association, or just the people who may stop you and say, why did council do that? How could they do that? And I think that's one of the most exciting parts of being on council, that you can educate people. Another is that you can really work on policies and help make a difference in the library world. Now, I've been doing this for some time, and I can remember times when someone would stand at the back of the room and say, I want to make a motion to thank whatever community we were in for hosting this. We've come a long way from that because there are very important issues, especially the issue of advocacy. And we're not just doing it for ALA, we're doing it for the affiliate associations like Reforma, like Apala. So your duties are to respond to the materials that you get. You can't remember everything, you can't read everything, but you can be informed by listening, really firmly listening, and to go to the forums and to just talk amongst yourself. I think it's one of the most wonderful experiences you can have, and I think your duties are not passive. They may seem so when you get the pile of papers or when you're seated at your wherever you are in the association, but it really does make a difference. And I also think that it's important to recognize that there are focuses from different groups, but we're all at the last really wanting to make better library service for our various communities. Do any of you have any questions? Because I know one of the things is probably fear of the mics. I didn't address that. And I think all of us, we're very capable people. We have different levels back home, but there's something about going to the mic and being, as it were, naked and saying our little piece. And one of the things that people do, very experienced people, is forget to identify themselves. It's very important when you get up there to say your name, whether you're a chapter counselor or divisional or at large, because the people who are captioning and recording need to identify who made the resolution or who asked for clarification or who asked for more information. And I know it can be upsetting, it can be nerve-wracking, but it also can be very fulfilling. Are there any questions? Thank you very much for giving your service and giving your time. It's really appreciated.
Gina and Pat, thank you very much. We appreciate your help on the committee. And our next speaker will be our parliamentarian, Ellie Mina. And Ellie is an expert in the Roberts Rules of Order. And he's also one of the people who, during the council meetings, will sit up here at the main table.
You can see me. Okay. Good morning, everybody. And so I'm Ellie Mina. I'm ALA parliamentarian. It's been my pleasure in serving in this position for the past 12 and a half years, and I'll tell you a bit more about the history of it in a few minutes. And the job for the next 20 minutes is an impossible one, which is essentially standing in front of a videotape camera to make you, by the end of 20 minutes, experts in 700-some pages of Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised, which is the new parliamentary authority for ALA. Obviously, it's an impossible task, but I'll do the best I can to give you the most important provision that will be applicable to you. Does everybody have the handout package that is entitled, what is it, An Introduction to Rules of Order, etc.? Everybody has it? Because I'll be using it a bit, and so I just wanted to be sure that you have it. And my style is to do my presentation interactively, so from time to time I'll ask you to raise your hand and see how things go. And I would suggest that to make it easier for you to ask questions, maybe someone can hand over them, take the microphones and hand them over to you, because this being a technical subject, I don't want it to be intimidating for any of you. If you have a question, no such thing as a silly question. Let's make sure that we hear them. So, question for you. Those who are continuing as a counselor, raise your hand. Thank you, lower your hand. And those who have never been on council before. Okay, so majority have not been on council before. Here is a situation comes to mind. I remember some years ago, probably earlier in my involvement with ALA, when someone stood before a newly elected group and said this. He said, for the first year, given that we're working with a group of as many as 160 or 70 people in the room, maybe you want to be just quiet, not say anything, don't get yourself embarrassed, just stay safe for the first year or so. And given that I was a few speakers behind him, this is what I ended up saying. I said, with respect, I beg to differ. And it is this: each of you is a counselor, has one vote. It doesn't matter whether you've been around for 1 day or 15 years, you still have one vote. And because of it, the influence of a decision-making process is equal. It obviously means that for new councilors, you have a job of upping your knowledge level and going through a steep learning curve before you participate. But conversely, what I find is as I sit here and I'm being quiet, I'm not participating in a debate, but I listen. And sometimes I hear the most interesting comments being brought forward by the newest person on council. So again, the fact that you're new should not be held against you. You're a voting member just like everybody else. Question to do with rules of order. Those, sometimes I think about the sentiment towards Robert's rules, or it used to be Sturgis Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure. So if you happen to be passionate about rules of order as I am, hands up. Oh, I have two, rare. Maybe I get you to join the National Association of Parliamentarians. We have a convention in Washington, D.C. in September. Exciting times. So that's that. Those who kind of accept and tolerate the rules is just something that we do. Raise your hand if you tolerate it. And then the third one will be, the moment we mention rules, I begin to suffer. Suffering and pain. Okay, so some of you may remember the phrase, suffering is optional. That is very much the spirit with which I've interpreted the rules and helped organizations. Essentially, the rules are there as a means to an end. They're not there as an end in themselves. They're not to be used as a way of baffling, confusing, and intimidating people. They're to help you. They're a tool to help you facilitate the decision-making process, introduce motions, debate them, maybe move to amend them, maybe move to refer them to a committee, all of those as the tools that are available to you so you can make the decision-making process as effective as it can be. Again, procedure is a means to an end. It isn't an end in itself. So just like to tell you briefly about how I fell into this field. It kind of happened by coincidence, but started a long time ago, 1981, when I joined a nonprofit organization. And at some point during the meeting, until which time things went reasonably well, was quite interesting. The president took a piece of wood looking like a hammer. They called it a gavel, tapped it on the table and said, the business meeting is now in order, is called to order. And I had no idea what they were doing. It sounded like a foreign language to me, especially when there was those motions, amendments to the amendments, and was completely confused. At some point, someone raised a point of order, and the chair made a ruling on that point of order, and the member disagreed with the chair, and they said, I appeal the decision of the chair. And they took a vote on the appeal and overrode the decision of the chair. And he got so upset that he walked away from the meeting. We never saw him again. So we saw it as a personal attack. Just so you know, how Robert goes says, the decision on the ruling is not personal. It's not about the chair. It's about the ruling. Was the ruling of the chair deemed to be correct or incorrect? So that's the essence of appealing from the decision of the chair. So that was way back in 1981. But somehow I got interested in this some more. And at the end of 1983, once I got a bit comfortable with this, the phone rang and this unusual, unexpected call came in. The individual said, I have a convention that I'm organizing with 150 people traveling from across Canada. And they're all very, very passionate about the issues that we discuss. And we have some controversial resolutions, quite a few of them, and a massive amendment to our bylaws, so we could be in some trouble. Someone saw you chair a meeting, you seem to know what you're doing, will you help us out? If any of you get that phone call, I suggest you say yes, as I did. But then make sure to learn some more so you get comfortable with the procedure. And if you do want to join any of the parliamentary organizations, I'd be glad to give you the contact information. There are two of them, the National Association and then American Institute of Parliamentarians. Both of them have meetings, so you get to meet people of this strange, unusual occupation. So that was 1983, 84, and then subsequently it somehow grew on me and moved away from my engineering career into being a professional parliamentarian and serving organizations such as ALA, a nonprofit organization, as well as a lot of work with municipal government, boards of education, school board, health boards, public board, a lot of work with boards. And sometimes my work amounts to just education, similarly to what I'm doing today. And there are times when organizations get into a bit of trouble, so then I come in on what you might call a rescue mission, to move them away from attacking one another and to a place where they're discussing issues, debating issues, and not attacking personalities. So that has become my occupation. In 2002, end of 2002, this was the request for proposal from the American Library Association, and you have a policy that says the parliamentarian has to be an individual who is not a personal member of ALA. So I was approached together with a few other people. We had a very lively and spirited interview with 6 people in the office next to Keith Michael Field's office. And at the end of that day, I got the call back that ALA wanted to negotiate the agreement with me. So ALA is quite an interesting organization from my perspective. It has its own unique culture, and I need to talk about that as the culture relates to the procedure as we go through our conversation. Now, what happened also in last year, actually a couple of years ago, the book that you were using as your parliamentary authority, which was Sturgis Standard Code of Parliamentary Procedure, was discontinued. It became an e-book, and the American Institute of Parliamentarians came up with AIP Standard Code, which means ALA needed to make a decision on whether or not it wanted to move on to the AIP Standard Code or to move to Robert's Rules of Order. And after some discussion, and the vote was taken in midwinter and subsequently ratified to switch to the current edition, Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. My job is to explain a bit about the differences. Maybe I can share a few thoughts. The first one is I had to consider the 12.5 years of meetings of ALA Council that I've observed and served as an advisor on. And I have to say that the number of times that the application between Robert and Sturgis would be different, I could count on one hand. Not many occasions. The treatment of resolutions, the treatment of amendments, the treatment of motions to postpone, to refer, motion to a point of order, to raise a point of order, to appeal the decision of the chair. All of these things came up in the past 12.5 years, and the treatment will be exactly the same. There's some places where it's different. So in the handout package that I gave you, I made a list of key places where they seem to be different. There's obviously quite a few more, but those are the things that did come up at the meeting that I attended. Give you yet another perspective on this, and I'm saying it because people got it. There was a bit of discussion of what is the difference. I'm a member of the American Institute of Parliamentarians, and we have meetings as well. So I recall about 10 years ago, and this is what happened. The president suggested to the group that for this meeting, although normally we use Robert, they said we'll use Sturgis for the next 3 days, and we'll see how much of a difference it makes. And at the end of 3 days, and consider this is a group of parliamentarians. This is what they make a living at. At the end of the 3 days, the president noted that the difference was only in 2 very minute places. So clearly, when you get into the technical aspects of things, the books can be different. Now, I need to point to one of the phrases, my favorite phrases in, I call it RONR, Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised. And this is the big fat Bible, 700 pages. And just so you know, this is the kind of pocket guide. This is written by the same authors, called Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised in brief. So the same authors recognized that for the average person, they would need 700 pages, so they produce a more concise and maybe more user-friendly manual. But they still say that the definitive book is this one, Robert's Rules of Order, the current, newly revised, the full book. That's the authority. So one of my favorite sentences is on the last page of the handout package, and that's page 4. So if everybody flip over, if you don't mind. And so we have, it's a second paragraph from the end, and RONR, page 250, lines 11 to 15, and this is what it says. In ordinary meetings, it is undesirable to raise points of order on minor irregularities of a purely technical character if it is clear that no one's rights are being infringed upon and no real harm is done to the proper transaction of business. To me, this is quite profound. Essentially, we want to say we don't want to nitpick, and nitpicking really creates an unsafe meeting environment where people get uptight and afraid to go to a microphone for fear of someone who's going to raise a point of order. We look for this. We look to make sure to protect individual rights, and we also want to make sure that the business is properly getting done. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Example when I don't get excited could be this. Let's say that one of the rules in Robert is that the maker of the motion is not allowed to speak against the motion that they made. So if someone is preparing a resolution, presents it, they're kind of expected to speak in favor of it. It makes sense, but here is a thought. Suppose the individual does what Pat and Gina were suggesting, learn from the discussion, and as a result of it, they change their mind, and they say, I'm going to vote against the motion that I made. And so they go to the microphone, and they say, I now decided I'm going to vote against my motion. I want to explain why. And then you hear noise on the other side of the room. Point of order. What's your point of order? You're not allowed to speak against the motion that you made. Well, you know what? This is exactly fits within this sentence. What are we doing here? Are we nitpicking, or are we looking to use the rules in a way that facilitates informed, effective decision-making? So in this case, I would say, let's not worry about this. It's a rule. Usually it makes sense, so we'll follow it. But there are times when we don't need to worry about small violations, as long as no one's rights are being compromised, as long as the business gets properly done. Okay? Now, on the other hand, here is another example where we would worry about things. Council quorum. We need to have a minimum number of members present to conduct business. How many of you know the magic number? Out of 186, we need to have 75 is the minimum. So usually it's not a problem, and actually it's quite an impressive thing to say about ALA that people travel from across the country, and out of 186, usually we get between 130 to 150. So it's quite an accomplishment, but the time that it could become problematic is when we get close to the end of Council 3, and so it happened at least in 2003 once when it got close to 12 o'clock and people need to go and catch planes, and so we were getting to lose our quorum requirement. So in those instances, for someone to say point of order, we do not have a quorum anymore, does affect the assembly, because decisions that are made without a quorum are technically not valid decisions. Okay? Another possibility could be, and so here is how it goes, under the process, we have Alimina sitting here at the clock, and we have Joanne Kemp keeping the speakers list, and the presiding officer is here, and presenters will be here. So Joanne's job during a meeting is to keep a list with how many microphones? 7 microphones. She would advise the chair who is the next speaker on the microphone. Okay. But suppose Joanne, by chance, missed someone, and that individual is getting frustrated because really they are the next in line. They've been waiting, and someone who lined up after her or him, is recognized to speak. So we go, point of order. My point of order, so-and-so was first. So if you notice an error like that, is anyone's rights being violated here? Yes. The principle is first come, first served. So if someone is being ignored and you want to bring attention to it, their rights are being affected. In that case, this phrase will not apply. Okay, so rules of order are not there to become an end in itself. They're just there to facilitate, but if someone's rights are being violated, or if the business is not getting properly done, then raising those points would be appropriate. So let me pause for a moment. How are we doing so far? That phrase is one of my favorite. Okay, so let's look at a few things that happen. And to explain a bit about what are some of the roles that I assume and how some of the observations. So clearly the primary role that the parliamentarian would serve would be to sit here and give the president advice, the presiding officer advice on the application of parliamentary procedure, on time management, whatever it is that's needed. I have no vested interest in any of the outcomes. In other words, I don't tell anyone how to vote, and to vote yes, to vote no, that's your business. We just look at making sure that the process is there, the process is clear and clean. So that's the role of the parliamentarian. The president is the one who makes the ruling. I usually don't speak at the meeting at all. If I do, I sometimes have, but it's a very unusual circumstance for me to actually speak from that position. Some other things, some proactive work that we do in order to make sure that with this many people, the meeting is well planned and we anticipate the problem. One of them is The presiding officer, the president-elect, who will be the backup to the presiding officer, plus the executive director, and Lois Ann Gregory Wood, and a couple of other people, would meet in the morning prior to a meeting. So usually there's 3 meetings like those. When we have what we call the prompt book, we review the script, we review the meeting, we anticipate any problem that might occur, and just prepare for those problems. So that's another role. I have made it my practice to also attend what was described here as a council forum, and I'd like to echo and second the recommendation. Please plan to attend it. New councilors, I found them, I go and attend as an observer. I always sit in the back, but it's a place where you learn. I think at council setting, it can be quite intimidating and very, very formal, and the council forum is less formal, and again, recommendation is it's a good way to get to know council and to get to work in the less formal settings. As parliamentarian, I sit and observe. And then another thing that I have done, and that was on my own initiative, I decided to put in at the end of each session, midwinter and annual, to put together a report that is containing commendations and recommendations, observations about how the meeting went, and some suggestions of the procedural nature of how future meetings could be done differently. So let me see what else. The process. So let's talk about a few things, and then towards a little bit later, I'll comment on some of the differences between Robert and Sturgis. One of the thoughts is, what is the process? When we think about the decision-making process, and I use some words to describe it. One of them is the process needs to be orderly. Orderly means we speak in order. Nobody speaks, we don't have 3 or 4 people speaking at the same time. So the chair will recognize people in the order in which they go to the microphone, and then you need to open by saying, hi, I am, you say your name, and you say, I'm councilor at large, or I'm chapter councilor for this and this chapter. So that will be the formality. But essentially it means that people don't shout people down from their seat. It means that if you want to speak, say you disagree with someone, you line up at the microphone, and so the process is orderly. We'd have one person speaking at a time, not a choir happening in the room. Okay, so that's one. The process needs to be focused. So when we are discussing a resolution, I speak in favor or I speak against a resolution or have mixed feelings about it. All of those would be appropriate, but speaking about the movie that you might have seen is not focused on the issue at hand. It gets a bit confusing though, not all that simple, when we have an amendment. So a resolution is presented, someone proposes a substantive amendment to it, and then the discussion needs to be on the amendment. So we kind of push the pause button on the resolution and we begin to discuss the amendment. Other possibility is if during the discussion of the resolution, someone believes it should be studied more by a certain committee, like let's say Committee on Legislation, then any of you could prepare a motion to refer. I move that a resolution be referred to, and you say which body, which committee should it be referred to. One of the typical committees that gets referral is called BARC. Anyone knows what that is? BARC. Budget Analysis and Review Committees, because resolutions need to have the financial foundation for them. And if they have fiscal implications, the policy is that they do go to BARC for assessment. And then, so a decision needs to be made by council to do that. So if a resolution is in front of you, you think it needs to be studied, I move that it be referred. So in that case, the focus is on the motion to refer. Okay, and so that's it. So what did we say? Orderly, focused. What is this? Timely. And the process is timely. So one of the greatest challenges I face as parliamentarians is I'm looking at the number of items on the agenda and how much time do we have. And the more resolutions we have and the more action items are proposed by the committees coming before you, the more challenging it is. So the challenge is always to balance the rights of individuals to speak and to express their views and to learn from one another and to make fully informed decisions, which is, I think, what you need to do, with the need to make sure that we conclude the business within the available time. So one of the things that we do in terms of time management is the lights. And so you'll find a set of lights here, quite a few of them. But you'll see the green light when you begin to speak, if you go and speak, and that would mean you have 3 minutes left. The green light will remain on for 2 minutes, and then if you continue to speak, You have 1 minute left, the yellow light comes on, and then when time's up, the red light begins to flash. So we have some show happening here. And by the way, I never had a chance to do this, but there is an option on the device there to, if someone goes over the 3-minute time limit, I can push a button and it begins to beep. So it gets to be interesting and exciting, but all to do with time management. People asked me in the past, what happens if someone wants to extend the time? Let's say someone has a more substantial statement to make than 3 minutes permit, then who do you think will make the decision to grant them that time? The decision will be made by? We're not working with monarchy. We're working with democracy. So the presiding officer can suggest it, can try what's called unanimous consent and say, is there any objection to allowing the individual to speak for another minute? Looking around, no objection, you have another minute. Or if there is an objection, those in favor of granting the extra time and those against granting the extra time. And to deviate from the normal rule, once the rule is approved, 3 minutes, will take, under Robert, a 2/3 vote. Okay, 2/3 vote to suspend the rules and allow individuals to speak longer. Okay, so just so you know, timely. How are we doing so far? Processes. So what did we say? Orderly, focused, timely, fair. Fair would mean nobody gets to speak a second time on the same motion when someone else is waiting to speak for the first time. So usually that's Joanne's role, would be to watch, and if she sees someone rushing to the microphone to speak a second time, but someone else has not spoken, just a moment. And so then we make sure that we're fair and equal. No one gets to speak many times when other people have not spoken yet. So that's fundamental to the process. The other thing is that the process is courteous. So we don't attack individuals ever. There's no nasty comments about the individuals and the motivation. We talk about what the individuals propose. So comments must be directed to the issues, not to personalities in the room. So the process is respectful, civilized. We want to have an effective democracy that tolerates and celebrates diversity of opinions, but never goes to the place of nasty attacks against individuals or shouting people down. And I'm sad to say that that actually did happen. So we needed to comment on that and bring the group back to the place where it needs to be. Diversity of opinions is here. Sometimes it will be controversial, but we still need to comment on what the individuals say rather than individuals themselves. Okay? So it's courteous, it's respectful, it's civilized. That's what the process needs to be. And one thing that is not so much of a Robert's Rules perspective, I would think with ALA, the ALA culture is the process is informed. And it's like a religion here, and I can say that it's not one that is documented in the book. Robert doesn't say, thou shalt make informed decision. It doesn't say that. Thou shalt allow enough debate. It doesn't say that, because you cannot legislate common sense. But to me, that common sense is very abundantly here. I've seen, for example, the motion to close debate when it's premature, when there's still, let's say, 5 people here, 5 people here, 5 people there waiting to speak, and if some of them move to end the debate, which takes a 2/3 vote, both in Robert and Sturgis, a 2/3 vote, usually that would end up being defeated because people say, you see quite a few people, there's still quite a bit to learn. So I'd say that that's contrary to what I see in other organizations. I can say, including my own, the National Association of Parliamentarians, one of the parliamentary organizations. So sometimes this is my frustration. As a member, I go to the microphone and I want to say something which has not been said by other people. But the person ahead of me in the lineup, I move the previous question, which is the same as I move to end the debate. So sometimes that group gets into what I call collective impatience. They just want to move forward. Come on, let's move on. And 2/3 vote is not difficult to get in that setting. In your setting, it's my experience, it's impossible to get it if there hasn't been sufficient debate. That's culture. You see the rules being used and applied differently depending on the personality and the culture of the organization. I happen to respect this culture that you have here very much. I think it's very fundamental to a good, strong democracy, an informed democracy, even if it isn't written in any book. So one thing that I put together as far as the process, in addition to all these words of being, orderly, focused, efficient, In addition to that, the process is strong, gentle and strong at the same time. It's gentle and respectful, but at the same time, it's firm. And I'd say it's almost like your best friend. You need to know the process. You need to respect the process. And when the process is being breached, someone needs to maybe defend the process by raising points of order. And someone described this as strong and gentle at the same time, like a velvet gavel, meaning it's strong, it's firm, but also it is soft and gentle. So it's nice to work with. It supports you into being an effective democracy. How is my time? I'm okay. Okay. So I think I covered most things. We talked about time management. Sometimes in terms of time management, we get into the crunch. Let's say that we're an hour away from the last meeting, Council 3, and we have 3 more resolutions. The language that I suggest to the chair is something like this. Council, we have 3 resolutions and a total of 1 hour before we need to adjourn. Is there any objection to allowing 20 minutes per resolution? So then with your agreement, if nobody objects, it ends up being 20 minutes per resolution, which means that I look at a different way of timing, and then you get informed when the time is up for this particular resolution. So time management, making sure that there is adequate amount of time, but not excessive amount of time for certain resolutions, which end up compromising subsequent resolutions. That's the kind of a balancing act that we face. I'll give you a few more myths or a few other procedures to think about. One of them is seconding a motion. When someone says, I second the resolution or second the motion, does it mean that you agree with the motion? So under both Robert and Sturgis, you don't agree with it, you're just saying, I agree that it should be discussed. And Robert even says you can second the motion because you strongly disagree with it, because you want it to be discussed and you think it will be defeated, and so that might be your intent in seconding the motion. Very often it's a misconception that people will say enthusiastically, I'll second it, as though they agree with it, when in fact you're not required to agree in order to second the motion. I mentioned the word amendment, and sometimes that become a bit of a, time-wise, become a bit of an anxious moment. So ALA Council approved this policy some years ago. And this is what it was. Because the problem at hand was that sometimes grammatical minor amendments that have no substantive impact were presented in taking up time, which meant that the amendment is displayed on the screen, the chair says, is there any debate? And they take a show of hands. So the policy was that to authorize the executive director to make housekeeping changes, grammatical or otherwise, to a resolution without touching the intent in any way whatsoever. So that could be something that the chair might have to say if someone is making one of those housekeeping amendments. Can we please pass that on to Keith Michael Fields so council can focus on the big picture instead of descending to the minutia level and dealing with a comma here or a word that's not quite right here. So it's just looking at the intent, the overall intent, the big picture. When we bring in people from across the country, traveling long distances, and time is tight, we want to make sure that the time is spent in the most effective and the most focused way, probably on the higher level, on the policy level, instead of looking at every word and every comma. Okay? And let me see. One of the places that you'll find on the last page where there is a difference between Sturgis and Roberts, I'll point at least to this one. That's on that page under closing debate. And Robert calls it the previous question, but we can tolerate different words. It doesn't matter what the words are, it matters the intent. So if you say, I move to end debate, that would be fine. But one of the things that's different is that Sturgis prohibits you from speaking in debate and then saying, and I move to end the debate. It doesn't like that. Sturgis did not allow you to do that. Robert permits you to do it. So that's one small difference between the two. And there's a few other differences here. One of them is the motion to table, and that has been used at ALA on one occasion to, under Sturgis, tabling can use to kill a pending motion. So you don't want to vote on it, you just want to get rid of it. So you move to table it, and in that case, tabling requires a 2/3 vote. When Robert used tabling in a completely different way, so the appropriate motion to, in this case, to get rid of a pending motion is to move to postpone it indefinitely. Means I want to kill it, I want to get rid of it. So that's just a different tool. It has not been used very much. I think it was used only once in a 12 and a half years. So that's one of the differences between Sturgis and Robert. And I'm just trying to look at others. Closing debate. Division of the, that came up actually a couple of times. If you have a resolution that has two parts, and in the estimation of one of you, it would be better to divide it and deal with each part separately. Under Sturgis, it would be the demand of one individual, and you need to divide it, just one individual. Under Robert, it's an agreement of the assembly, so it's a democratic, it's a collective decision, not the decision of one individual. So that's another difference. Anyway, I think I've spoken long enough. Is there any questions? Any questions on any of the procedure? Just remember, suffering is optional. So, questions? Microphone? Hopefully that's, yeah. Mary has a question. Maybe pass on the microphone to her. That'd be.
Thank you. I want to thank Ellie for bringing out a point that I strongly agree with. That's the right of the individuals, and we should respect one another, because it has happened in several of the council meetings where we had catcalls and boos. And I think at all times, no matter, and I'm not trying to supersede you in your explanation, but I think at all times, no matter how heated the conversations are or how strongly we feel, we still have to respect our colleagues and deliberate in a real democratic manner. Thank you very much for bringing that up.
My pleasure, my pleasure. And in a good democracy, we celebrate diversity of opinions. And so we certainly don't have to agree and vote the same way. But the idea is make sure people have a chance to attempt to persuade you. And if you persuaded, you are. If you're not, you're not. But you never attack the individual. You always talk about the perspective. Okay? So look forward to working with you, and thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Council Orientation Committee and about some of the things that we do. One of the things that we do is a mentoring or buddy opportunity for the newly elected councilors. In July, I will post on the council list and ask if any of the newly elected councilors would like to have a mentor or a buddy. And then I will work with the experienced councilors to assign you a mentor or a buddy who I think would be most helpful to you. Typically, we want to match chapter councilors with chapter councilors, at large with at large, roundtable with other roundtable councilors, and division with division councilors. And you can, give me your input about, what you need from a buddy or a mentor. And hopefully then, when you're seated at the midwinter meeting, that buddy or mentor could sit with you and possibly meet with you, to help you out. At all times, I'm available to help you. I will post again my information on the council list, and I encourage you to contact me if you have any things that you need. One of the other things that the Council Orientation Committee does is we manage the council suite, and the council suite is available for the use of sitting councilors to use during ALA meetings. For example, at this meeting, it was available from 9 a.m. Friday until 9 p.m. on Monday. You could have a caucus meeting there. A chapter councilor could invite people from their chapters. A division councilor, for example, could invite people from their division to meet with them. Typically, the council suite is large enough to hold anywhere from 40 people or more, and I typically post that information as soon as I get it from ALA Council Services. The only issue is typically I often don't know, or the chair of the committee doesn't know, the exact room number until almost immediately before council. So for example, here I didn't have the exact room number until I checked in on Thursday afternoon. But that's another opportunity for you, and I hope that you'll avail yourself of it. So again, the Council Orientation Committee is here to help you and to guide you as newly elected councilors, and also to provide information to you and possibly to refer you to the appropriate ALA staff member who might help you. Do we have any questions? We will have a Q&A session at the end. Next on the agenda is the head of the ALA Governance Office, Joanne Kemp, and Joanne is going to talk to us about some of the things that she does and some of the things that you do need to know.
Thank you. Okay, so you've kind of gotten the whole rundown about parliamentary procedure and how many councilors and appointments and stuff. But there's been a lot of talk about these microphones. And I'd kind of like to give you a little microphone primer, because sometimes I think people are you're a little, like as Pat said, you may be a little hesitant because you've never actually brought a resolution or commented or whatever. You think, oh, I don't want to talk in front of these people. But what I'm doing up here, and I sit right there next to the presiding officer, I'm watching who's going to what microphone so that I can kind of call you in order. And I do the best I can, because sometimes if it's a really hot topic, a dozen people rush up at one time. So it's kind of hard to know exactly who got where first, but I do the best that I can. But one thing that I need you to do is, if you're going to speak in front of the microphone, to stand in front of the microphone. Don't be 3 feet back or off to the side or leaning on a table. I need to know that you really want to talk. So get up there and don't be afraid of it, because it's the only way that we can hear what you're saying. And I'll tell you, if they can't hear you, they will start to scream at you. We can't hear you. And like, oh no. The microphones are adjustable. So if you're tall, you just raise it up. If you're short, you bring it down and be right up next to it. And also, sometimes maybe you might want to be talking about a group, you want to be proposing an amendment or something. So there's a couple of you that want to just kind of talk in a cluster. If you could do that in the back of the room or on the side, because sometimes, I don't know, are you wanting to talk or are you just talking amongst yourselves? So you just have to kind of be mindful of how I'm trying to pay attention to what's going on at those microphones. And also, if you decide, oh, the line's long, I'm going to sit down for a minute. If you sit down, you lost your place in line. I'm sorry, but I can't read your minds, you know? So just kind of be aware that this is a really important thing. And I'll be honest, when I first got this job and they told me, you keep track of the microphones, I thought, right, you know. It's huge. It's really difficult to do, and it's important because you all want to be heard, and I don't want to miss anybody. So, you know, it's really important to just kind of be mindful of what you're doing up there. So that's really kind of all I have to say. Is just kind of the, you know, how to you know, behave at the microphones and be mindful and introduce yourselves and things like that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Joanne. We really appreciate all of the work that you and the members of the ALA Governance Staff Office do for Council and for the Executive Board. Next, we'll have Lois Ann Gregory Wood, the Council Secretariat, talk a little to us about what she does. And I will tell you that Lois Ann is the institutional memory of ALA governance. And you've been here so long, it's great because you've been here so long. You have a memory extending back to further than almost any of the sitting councilors, which is a huge help for us at times when we have to make decisions based on something that might have happened years ago.
Thank you, Joseph. Hello. And so what I would just want to say briefly about, well, you guys were elected in 2015, and so you have a 3-year term, so you go off in 2018. At 2018, when you guys are going off, I will be celebrating my 50th year at the association. I know, it's so sad. It's so sad. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about your voting cards. And at every meeting, you get a voting card. And we start out, and they're color coded, so it's pink ivory blue, first, second, and third. There is no voting card for the membership meeting. We do not keep an attendance there because it is a council executive board membership meeting, so there's no need. But if you can't come to the information meeting, you do not have to let me know. But if you can't come to one of the council meetings, one of the action meetings, you have to let me know, because then I can mark you an excused absence, as opposed to, we don't know what happened to them. So yeah, so it's really important that you let me know that if you can't be there. So here are the vote tally cards, and one will be put at your place before every meeting, and then and when you get it, the first thing you do, if you wouldn't mind, is to write your name on your voting card and sign it. Every meeting, there is at least one voting card that does not have a name on it, and we have to void it. There's no way to identify who it belongs to, and it's really unfortunate that someone sat throughout the entire conference, an entire meeting, and then their voting card, they will not have a record of the votes. So please fill out your voting card. The other thing is that every time you guys take a vote, we will put something up on the screen to tell the description, to say, what to entitle it. Please stick to those names. Do not get creative, because when I get back to Chicago, I have to sit and tally the votes. So it's really good to have those, the consistency in the title. So that would really be helpful. Everybody will have or get one of these portfolios, and it's to put, your documents in, or anything else that you would like to retain during the meeting. I wouldn't put any valuables in here. Although this room is secure, other people are having meetings in here, and we don't want anything to come up missing. Now here we go with the seating. There is no assigned seats, but you can take your portfolios and leave them at your place. So at least it will be your seat for that particular conference, but I'm not gonna say that every time you come, you can get that same seat. If you're lucky, maybe it will happen, but there are no assigned seats. The person that I really want to introduce, and she's gonna hate me for this, but I'm gonna do it anyway, because it's Danielle Alderson. And I know, right? And Danielle, stand up so they can see you. There you go. The girl with the shoes. You have to check them out. They're wonderful. And Danielle is on loan to me at this conference because she really has her own job with her own commitments. And she works with Mary Geekus back at the association, but she only works with me during the conference. But I'm telling you, I could not do anything without Danielle. Danielle really is my right-hand person. In fact, she's probably the right and the left. So I really appreciate that she's here, and I love her to death. What else did I want to tell you about? I want to tell you, I did the voting cards, I did the signature. Oh, council documents. And we do now do a small supply, a small run of paper copies, but we are really trying to encourage people to get your documents electronically and use them that way. We're trying to save paper and definitely save the cost of printing them all out, but there will be a small supply available if you just have to have paper. And all the council documents will be at those tables. So in the morning when you come, and if you need them, they will all be lined up in number order. So feel free to get them, but we really are encouraging the electronic access. Oh, council ribbons. You don't need them this time because you're not seated, but at midwinter, make sure you pick up your council ribbon. They're at the registry. They're at that this year they're at a ribbon bar. So you can stop by there and pick up your ribbon, but if you don't do it, I also have a supply here at my table. So, yes, ma'am. Well, the white ones are the ones. The purple ones, I'm not real sure where those came from, and so don't get the purple ones. And you really do need to wear your ribbon, because that's the way that we identify you, and to make sure that everybody who has that ribbon on is really a legitimate counselor, and that really does count, particularly when we're doing voting and official kinds of things. So it's really important that you have your ribbon. Okay, and you guys are you've all been subscribed to the council list on a read-only basis. Is that correct? Are you getting the emails from council? Oh, yes? Okay. Oh, well, if you're not, just let me know, And so you should be there on a read-only basis. And after the annual conference, we will change that to a read-write situation. So right now you can only read it. After conference, you'll be able to post and read. So that will be a lot of fun. You can actually respond to what's going on the list. I think that's pretty much all that I have to say. Welcome aboard. It's going to be a wonderful, and the 3 years is going to go by so quickly, and you're going to have so much fun. It's going to be so rewarding that you're going to really want to do it again. I was going to say you could ask Mary Biblow, who I think that this is probably her 30th year on council, so yeah, she can tell you all about it. But anyway, thank you, and welcome aboard. Yes, sir.
Question. So you had mentioned that we're just on the read only.
Yes.
But then also it was said that we were. Thank you. My name is Francisco Vargas. Councilor at large. So just to clarify, you said we're just in the read only.
Mm-hmm.
But then I heard earlier today that we were expected to vote on the budget on Sunday, or is that we're just there?
No,
Okay.
the seated counselors.
Seated. Okay.
Will be voting.
Or not voting, but approving the budget. It was said
No, only
earlier.
the seated counselors, only
Okay.
the current counselors
Yes,
will
'cause
be
I-
allowed to vote at this conference.
I was only able to make this meeting. I
Yeah.
have other commitments, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't.
No.
Okay.
You're
Thank you so
good.
much.
Anybody else? Sir?
Lois Ann, just along with the council list for chapter counselors, there are about 3 other lists that they will be subscribed to. There's the ChapCown list and the chapter relations list, and there's one other which I can't remember, but Don will
Yes.
subscribe everybody to those. So make
Yes.
sure that if you're a chapter counselor, you're also getting
Right.
the emails from those lists.
Yes, correct. Ma'am?
I just want to ask, whoa, that sounds weird. So if we're not seated, are we not invited to the forum this time?
Well, the forums are open meetings, so.
So we can go? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody else? Are you coming to say something?
Is the council list open to non-council members?
Yes.
Read only?
Read only,
Okay.
yes.
And then also are council documents available on ALA Connect? Is that where
Yes.
they're also posted?
Yes.
Okay.
They're
Thank you.
public documents. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Lois Ann. Yeah, just to reiterate, all ALA meetings, unless they're closed for a particular, reason within the ALA policy, are open to any ALA members. So for the newly elected councilors, if you wish to go to one of the council forums, just to get a feel for how that works, or you want to sit in the member-only area in the back of the room at one of the council meetings here at annual, that's a great idea. It'll give you a feel for how the council meetings go, and it will make you more comfortable if you wish to do that. But for the newly elected councilors, you're actually seated immediately after the end of the annual conference. So we're going to have a Q&A session, and we're going to ask committee members Amy and Nan to come up. And if you have a question, we would appreciate you going up to the microphone. I'll also be, wandering around, but because we're doing the videotaping, we would appreciate if you have a question to come up to one of the microphones. You do have to learn to come up to the microphone and identify yourself and then, speak when you're actually a seated councilor.
Great. Well, this was a lot of information, and we know it's a lot of information. Come back to orientation a couple of times. You've never been on council too long to come to orientation. And if you don't have a question right now, this is not your last opportunity to ask questions. Council members tend to be a very friendly bunch, and certainly the orientation committee members are a really very friendly bunch. So find us and ask away.
Hi, so Linda Kopecki, I'm incoming director at large with two completely unrelated questions. Well, related to this, but not to each other. One, am I correct in finding that at no time is there a compilation document with clumps of conference documents? You have to download them one at a time, one at a time, one at a time?
You'll find everything, documents are all presented individually because they're individual items on the agenda. And as documents get edited, oftentimes documents will be amended from one council to another.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I was downloading them one at a time.
Yes.
It's tedious, it's not perfect, but it works. So.
Okay. And then my second question, completely different. As a director at large who then doesn't have a official constituency, I'm a member of many, many groups. I'm not representing necessarily any of those, right? I'm representing the directors at large, membership at large. So I'm wondering, for people who are repeat on council, I'd just like tips, maybe offline. How are you connecting with members to find out what they think about issues? How are you communicating back to members when you don't have, a specific board or task force you're reporting back to? I've been a member for 28 years. I know a lot of people, but I'm wondering, what the role is for communication with members.
When I was a councilor at large, which was several terms, I'm very active on PubLib, and people would often ask questions that way. So perhaps whatever listserv exists for your type of library, or sometimes if you're in an area librarians group, for example, my regional library system, and people would say, oh, I know you're on council, what's happening? So it might be the network that you invent.
Okay. If anybody else does have thoughts or tips, Linda from Milwaukee, I'd appreciate hearing them. Thank you.
Great.
Hi. Hi, my name is Pauline Manaka, and I have a question that has to do with ALA Connect. No one in this meeting today has talked about that, and I heard that it's changing or it's being, am I crazy?
You are not crazy, but I don't know that it's changing.
It's being.
Is it changing? In what way? Do you know, Nan?
Okay, maybe. Well, yesterday at ACRL, they spoke about the ALA website changing and ALA Connect going away. I'm pretty sure I'm not crazy about that.
I'm sure you're not, but I did not.
Okay. That's okay. I was wondering.
But let's find you an answer to that. Is Lois Ann still
Thank you.
here? Because she will know.
Do you know if ALA Connect is changing?
We're in the process of revising it, yes.
Okay, but there's nothing to announce yet. It's still working as it's worked.
Don't freak out yet.
Yeah.
And the information will probably come to all of us, and all of ALA will be a Twitter with, not to use a trademark term, but everybody will just be buzzing all over that, and you'll probably hear. Okay. Thank you, Maria.
All right. I think Joseph had a few closing remarks, and we'll pass it back to him. But thank you all for coming this morning.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Nan. And thank you to all of the presenters. Again, I'm Joseph Egan, Chair of the ALA Council Orientation Committee. I'm also a past member of the Executive Board and a former Maryland Chapter Councilor. I thank you for your attendance, and I appreciate your service on council. I will tell you, you will have a wonderful time. You'll meet incredible people from all over the country, and you will find it to be one of the best and most positive experiences of your life. Again, thank you for coming, and contact me if you need anything. Thank you.
I'm good. Thank you very much.